We are back once again in the fog to talk about a survivor who, by all accounts, I should hate, but I don't. Why don't I hate her? Because it's kind of like when you're bumped into by a blind man. I mean, you're frustrated for the inconvenience of being bumped into, but you also understand that they're not entirely responsible for the collision either, so you kind of just shrug it off and go, it's cool. And that's Taurie Cain for me. Taurie Cain is a survivor that dropped with the Houndmaster, and since y'all know how I feel about the Houndmaster's lore, you probably think Taurie's lore is just as dog shit as Houndmaster's. But that's where you'd be wrong. Behavior proved that they still got that dog in them because they did the smartest thing they possibly could with Taurie Cain. They made her lore entirely separate from her killers. Now, on the one hand, I usually like it when the survivor and killer have some kind of connection in history. But on the other hand, I wouldn't want to admit I have anything to do with the Houndmaster's lore either, so I can't complain. Because probably the best thing about Taurie's lore is the fact that she's completely divorced from her killer. But how is her lore? If I'm going to be honest, I feel like if she was not related to the Houndmaster in terms of coming out in the same chapter, I'd probably hate her lore a lot more. But after coming off of how bad the Houndmaster is, looking at Taurie Cain's lore, my goodness, it's like Shakespearean in comparison. Okay, no, I can't even do that. It's still bad lore, but okay, let's just get into it. So Taurie Cain was born and raised in Scotland alongside her adorable brother, her loving mom and dad, and they were homeschooled to be proper and respectable members of their parents' secret death cult that worships the entity. Sorry, hold on, check my notes. No, that's accurate. Turns out that Taurie Cain's family are members of a secret cult called the Black Talon, an organization that worships an unseen god in another dimension that they believe is trying to transcend humanity, trying to evolve us to the next big state. She and her family travel all over the world to see ancient sightings and ancient civilizations where they believe the realm of this deity overlaps with our own, planes of existence known as the Bleeding. Now, like all great family men, Taurie's father decided to enter one of these bleeding areas. He didn't come back. Okay, well, that happens. And of course, Taurie's mom, knowing how important her children were to her, decided to go right in after him. She didn't come out either. Great parenting, by the way. Now, Taurie, brave lass that she is, totally empathetic and caring individual, decides to go in too. But she doesn't put on a protective suit to save her life. It's not a good thing. She goes in and she enters literal hell, a realm of nightmares, horrors, and mind-bending fear. She finds an empty, bloody protection suit with nothing in it but blood, tufts of hair, and meat and viscera. And then she sees her father several feet away, unconscious and not in his own suit. She tries to drag him to safety, but the predators of that realm are hot on her tail, when suddenly her little brother runs out in a suit of his own and leads the predators away, screaming bloody murder as they hunt him down like a dog. Taurie manages to get her father out, but as for her mother and brother, her mother's body was never found, and as for her brother, well, his fate we can only speculate. Well, enough about those losers. Oh, no, were you expecting more? Maybe their death had a huge impact on Taurie's life or her father's, or maybe Taurie dedicates her life to trying to find them. Maybe she's racked with grief and guilt over all that happened. Who cares? What's a mother and brother anyway? As Jesus himself said, who is my mother and who are my brothers? Note here, when Jesus said that line, he was not being disrespectful to his family, but making a distinction between his spiritual family and his earthly family here. Taurie's just effing insane. But if the original Messiah was too good for his mother and brothers, then surely this new Messiah is too good for them herself. No, I'm not joking. See, because she emerged from the bleeding without any ill effects on her sanity, the Black Talon assumed she was special, and I guess she is, and began having her enter it again and again, training her and building her up to be an ideal disciple. And Taurie felt she deserved it. She was special. Her immunity to the bleeding made her feel invincible, like she was going to serve the deity of their cult in the greatest capacity. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to her father, the lore says that her father eventually recovered from his time in there, but he never went back in. Again, brush him aside. We're not here about family. We're not here to talk about the brother who risked his life to save you and you don't know what happened to him, the mother whose body was never found, or the father who's probably been traumatized indefinitely by what happened to him. We're not here to talk about that or what you feel about all that. You're a good little disciple who doesn't at all care about your family, even though the whole reason you went into the realm in the first place was to save your family, but whatever. Moving on. So time passes, she grows, she starts moving up in the ranks of the Black Talon, and then one day, when the cultists captured the brother of Hattie Carr, yes, her lore comes up here, Jordan is captured by the Black Talon, and they told her to be the one to kill him in a ceremonial sacrificial execution. And in doing so, she would prove herself worthy to join the Black Talon's inner circle. And she was just about to do the deed, but right before she was going to kill him, right before she was going to plunge the dagger into his chest, she hesitated just a moment. But it was that one moment that was needed, because then the entity swooped in and whisked her away to his realm, not as a servant, but as a sacrifice. Okay, so the lore is... It's fine, but it's weak. It's kind of like if you leave a soda sitting out too long, it gets flat and not as good, but it's still drinkable. Okay, let me explain. Tauri's lore has nuggets of intelligence within it. Like, the idea that we've actually been following a member of a cult that worships the entity isn't a bad idea. We've seen hints of this dropped in other bits of lore in Dead by Daylight. I also like how we have the big twist that the entity doesn't value Taurie as a servant, but as a sacrifice. It's keeping in consistency with what we know about the entity. It's a reminder to us that the entity isn't some deity that craves worship or devotion, but merely entertainment. The belief that the entity cares about the ascension of humanity is a laughable one, and Taurie is realizing that now as the entity plays with her, mocking her devotion and faith openly, making a joke of her desire to please it. In a very twisted way, the entity is giving Taurie exactly what she wanted, the chance to please him by entertaining him. In a twisted way, I like that. I like the kind of play off of that. Like, you have this girl who's dedicated her whole life to pleasing this one entity, this one god, this one individual that she thinks is going to make all of her dreams come true, and she's going to be the ultimate servant of this god, only to realize, oh my goodness, turns out you were wrong to trust this god. It's kind of like Shadowheart trusting Shar in Baldur's Gate 3, but if you know, you know. But more to the point, it comes down to this idea that you have a great twist here, but then it's kind of ruined by what comes next, because there's some bad mixed into this lore, and unfortunately, it's bad that I can't ignore. The loss of Tauri's mother and brother seem to have positively no impact on her. In fact, after the brother screams echo in her ears, the two are never mentioned again. There's no indication she cares at all about her brother and mother, which is hilarious to me, since the whole reason she entered the bleeding in the first place was to find her father and mother, and the whole reason her brother is likely dead or worse is because he tried to save her life too, and his screams were the last thing she heard. I'm sorry, shouldn't she be traumatized? Shouldn't this have a real impact on her? Shouldn't she be totally distraught over the fact that she risked her life to save her mother and father, only was able to find her father and save him, and the only reason she survived was because her effing brother sacrificed himself to save her, and the last thing you hear of him is his screams of terror and pain as he's torn apart in the entity's realm? Or is he still alive? We don't know what's happened to him. We have no idea if he survived or not. Shouldn't she want to find him, get closure, discover what happened? No, she doesn't. Now, there are two explanations for this. I'm sure someone will try to explain it this way. One is she's sociopathic. She's just sociopathic. She doesn't actually care. But I feel like the story should have emphasized that. And if she is sociopathic, why go to the trouble of saving her father? If she was really sociopathic and didn't care, why did she try to save her father? Two, the second thing that people will say is that the realm of the bleeding made her lose her empathy. It slowly corrupted her to the point that she doesn't care about her family anymore. Okay, but if that's true, why did she hesitate when killing Jordan? Yeah, when she was about to kill Hattie's brother, she hesitated. If the bleeding had stripped her completely of her humanity and empathy, the hesitation would not have happened. No, the mother and brother's loss had no meaningful impact, and that's a massive misstep. You could have had her desire to find her mother and brother be a motivational force to keep going back into the bleeding. You could have had her devotion to the cult be a facade or even a necessary tool to continue finding her family. There's also kind of, and this is a little off of her herself, but it's kind of the stupidity of the cult in the first place. Look, I'm all for a cult that worships the entity, but here's my question. What are they hoping to get out of it? They claim the entity is going to ascend mankind one day, but just a single step into the bleeding should be enough to recognize there's nothing there worth ascending to. See, most cults or religious beliefs are founded on a few ideas. For example, what are we living for? What are we dying for? What do we worship? What are we hoping to get? What is our reward for our good behavior? What does the cult believe is the reward the entity offers? The answer is, oh, well, he's going to ascend mankind. Great. What's your evidence for that? All you've seen of the entity and what he does so far is horrific, nightmare, eldritch abomination shit. Like, what about any of this makes you think, oh yeah, great deity to follow? On the one hand, you got Jesus Christ who offers love, forgiveness, and, the chance to go to heaven for eternity. And you see this evidence and laid out in the Bible. Awesome. Then you got, the Black Talon and the entity, he causes, nightmarish hallucinations. His realm is one of horrors and nightmares that would make the warp blush. And every single person who's had any kind of interaction with the entity has either been killed or worse. Yeah, I think I'll take that one. That sounds fun. Does he offer dental? I would think that Tari, after coming out of the bleeding for the first time, would be like, yeah, hey, I don't think we should have anything more to do with that place. Seems kind of sketch. Definitely a 1-star on Yelp. Would not recommend. But no, like every generic evil organization, that which looks evil and destructive must somehow be good. Like, why is that? Why do writers always do that? They always make the villain in love with that which is destructive and painful and wicked. Like, someone call LED. I found the topic of their next video. Anyway, then there's the design of Taurie Cain. Let's get into the design. Let's take a look at her. Okay, look, I know that not every character you release has to be pretty, but I mean, good God. All right, moving on. Okay, so the lore's passable but problematic, and the design is horrific. But what about the perks? Are they good? Are the perks at least good? No. Tari comes with Clean Break, Invocation Treacherous Crows, and Shoulder the Burden. I'm not going to lie, these perks sound cool, but they really aren't. All right, let's get started. Clean Break. This is probably the only decent perk she has. After completely healing another survivor, this perk activates. While being healed by another survivor, press the active ability button to enter the broken status effect for 60 seconds. You will then regain a full health state after the 60 seconds are up. This perk can be useful, I suppose, after a hook save, because if you save a survivor and then heal them first, you can then quickly use this perk to end the underhook activity and get back to work on another job, assured that you'll heal up in a minute thanks to this perk. It actually reminds me of one of Trevor Belmont's perks. But my problem with it is it depends on your team knowing you have the perk, so they know not to heal you first. But seeing as there are health kits that can heal you so fast in game, I don't think there's a real need to use Clean Break all that often, unless you're working with a team and can communicate, hey guys, I have Clean Break. Let me heal you once, and then I get a free heal out of it. So it's fine. It's probably the least bad of any of her perks. Invocation Treacherous Crows. This perk is not only incredibly situational, it's positively not worth the cost of it. I'm going to be honest, when Taurie Cain came out, I saw a few people run this perk. I've not seen anyone run it since. It is that bad. So get this. It's the second invocation perk to come out outside of Invocation Weaving Spiders. There is a chalk circle in the basement. If you go and meditate at it for a full minute, this perk activates. Once it does, no other invocations can be used in the trial for any survivor, and you enter the injured and broken status effect for the duration of the trial. So to make sure you understand this means, 1, you only get 1 invocation to use for the trial. No one else can use another one after this, so if someone else is running Invocation Weaving Spiders, they do not get to use it. Number 2, once you activate this, you are injured and broken for the duration of the trial. That is a huge price to pay, so what's your reward? Oh, you'll love this. Anytime a killer scares a crow while a survivor is in their terror radius, the killer's aura is revealed for 2 seconds. Are you kidding me? Let's count the problems with this. Let's count them down. 1. This relies entirely on a survivor being in the killer's terror radius, meaning if the killer is undetectable and doesn't have a terror radius, this perk doesn't work. So it can't even counter a good stealth build, making its existence almost meaningless. Plus, given that there are some killers that rely on being undetectable, yeah, this perk is just almost useless in those situations. Number 2, given how there are many stronger aura builds available to survivors, this one is far too situational and with far too high a cost to make it worth it. It's just not worth being permanently broken just to give a mediocre aura feat. Number 3, you can't stack this with another invocation. No, you heard me right. Let's say that you're running both this invocation and invocation weaving spiders. You don't get both. You only get one. They cannot stack. So that means you either get Weaving Spiders, which is actually a good invocation perk with a good trade for the cost it is, or you get Invocation Treacherous Crows, which in my opinion is not a good trade. It is an awful trade. It is simply not worth it. And then number 4, let's pretend for a moment that the killer is chasing a survivor. Odds are good the survivor will scare the crows they pass as they run, meaning the killer won't be the one scaring those crows, which means that during a chase, the perk will likely do you no good. So, in short, this perk is shit. I would not risk it or use it unless you're just going for the prestige, and then I would never pick it up again. It is 100% not worth it. Now, I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to go for like oh look, we're giving messengers from the dark or allies of the dark, which is, it's a killer perk. There's this killer perk that all killers have access to where anytime a survivor runs past a crow and scares it, the crow gives off a noise notification, and so you'll know where the survivor is. It's a good perk. It is a good location finding perk where you can easily track down survivors, and survivors have no real counter to it other than if they're bringing animal bonding or whatever. Which allows them to not scare crows. But even then, you don't know if they're carrying it. It's not a very common perk to carry, but killers can get good, benefit off of it. This isn't the same thing because it requires that the killer have a survivor within their terror radius. If you really wanted to make this good, remove the terror radius requirement. Have it where anytime the killer scares a crow, you see their aura for 2 seconds. That would make this perk honestly a bit better. But this is a bad one. I'm sorry, this is a bad one. Lastly is Shoulder the Burden. This perk sounds game-breaking, but it's really not all that great in most circumstances. All right, so as long as you're not on death hook, you can use this perk while rescuing someone. You will scream and become exposed for 40 seconds, but in exchange, you'll take away one hook state from the rescued survivor and take it onto yourself. Now that sounds really noble and altruistic, but there are 3 problems with it. Number 1, most players won't want to make that kind of sacrifice. Exposing themselves, screaming, and gaining another hook state is a very hard price to pay, especially when the only result is helping another survivor not die quicker. Number 2, this perk is only really useful if the survivor you rescue is someone who has the perks to save the match or is a friend. So again, it's situational. And finally, number 3, I don't normally bring problems like this up, but this perk doesn't fit her character well. In fact, if I'm being honest, most of these perks don't fit her character. Taurie Cain seems to be an altruism-based character based on these perks. Her perks lay her out to be someone who's willing to sacrifice herself to help others, right? Like, all of her perks, with the exception of, even with the invocation one, they're all about self-sacrifice. They're all about taking on the burden yourself, you know? With her first perk, where you get a free heal, you have to heal someone first. You actually have to go out of your way to heal someone else first, then you get a benefit. With Invocation Treacherous Crows, you are becoming broken so that you can give the rest of the survivors a boon to protect them. And then with this perk, you're literally taking hook states onto yourself, making it more likely you die in the trial, but to help someone else. So this sounds like a really altruistic, very helpful, self-sacrificing character. But that doesn't follow with her lore. Remember, this is the girl who doesn't seem to give a shit about her mom and brother both being gone forever, who hasn't risked her own safety to go and find her family, who nearly killed an innocent man for the sake of her god. When has she demonstrated a selfless or empathetic attitude of self-sacrifice for people she does not know? Remember, she did everything to please her god and to please the cult. Why is she self-sacrificing for random strangers she's meeting in the entity's realm? Shouldn't she be trying to convert them all to the way of the entity and say, guys, if we just please the entity, we'll all go home? Shouldn't that be what she's trying to do? In my opinion, if you wanted to make perks for her, you should have made perks for Tari that were more about, looking out for number 1, kind of like what Yunjin Lee does. Because in her mind, she's the only one who should survive, because she's the one who's been faithful to the entity. Maybe that should be the change. Maybe that should be the difference. But none of these perks really fit Tari. So at the end of the day, her lore is subpar and mediocre. Her design is terrifying. And her perks are disappointing. Not a good look. But if I were to offer one piece of positivity and good for this survivor, I will say this. She ain't the Houndmaster. Oh, I don't think we've seen the lore yet to compare to the Houndmaster. But that's it for Doomed Course, a chapter featuring the worst killer lore of all time, and a survivor whose lore isn't terrible, but her perks are god-awful. Yeah, this was a Doomed Course. But now it's time to get into the next killer and survivor. First, we got an anime killer from Tokyo Ghoul, and then a survivor with lore so baffling I actually laughed out loud reading it. But that's all for next time in the fog. Take care.